King George III of the United Kingdom married Princess Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, and their marriage resulted in 15 children, all of whom survived birth. This video will dive into the lives of his 5 younger sons: King Ernest Augustus of Hanover, Prince Augustus, Duke of Sussex, Prince Adolphus, Duke of Cambridge, Prince Octavius of Great Britain, and Prince Alfred of Great Britain. King Ernest Augustus of Hanover was the 8th child born to King George III and Queen Charlotte. He was born on the 5th of June 1771 in Buckingham Palace, then known as the Queen's House. He was raised by his governess, Lady Charlotte Finch, who served the royal family for over 30 years. After leaving the nursery, Ernest lived in a household with his younger brothers Adolphus and Augustus near Kew Palace, and they were educated by private tutors. In 1786, the brothers were sent to the University of Göttingen under the supervision of George Christoph Lichtenberg. In 1791, Ernest and Augustus joined the Hanoverian army and received military training from Field Marshal Wilhelm von Freytag. Ernest proved to be an excellent horseman and a good shot. After 2 months of training, he was appointed as a captain in the cavalry. In March 1792, Ernest was commissioned as a colonel of the 9th Hanoverian Light Dragoons. During the War of the First Coalition, Ernest was stationed in Flanders and served under his older brother Frederick. During military action in 1793, Ernest received a sabre wound to the head that left him with a scar. In 1794, he was hit in the left arm by a cannonball and his eyesight was also affected. He returned to England to recover, his first time being back home since 1786. He returned to military duties 3 years later in 1797. He reached the rank of Colonel of the Royal Regiment of the Horse Guards in 1827. On the 24th of April 1799, Ernest was created Duke of Cumberland and Teviotdale and Earl of Armagh. He was the least popular of his brothers and had a negative reputation. He was accused of being involved in the murder of his valet, Joseph Sellis, of having an incestuous relationship with his sister Sophia, and of being the father of her illegitimate child. It is doubtful that there was any truth to any of those allegations. In 1813, while on a visit to his uncle Karl II, Duke of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, Ernest fell in love with his first cousin Frederica of Mecklenburg-Strelitz. Frederica's past romances disturbed Queen Charlotte. Frederica had married Prince Louis Karl of Prussia in 1793 and had 3 children with them. He died of diphtheria. In 1797, Frederica and Ernest's younger brother, Prince Adolphus, Duke of Cambridge, became unofficially engaged. It is unclear whether Frederica jilted Adolphus or if King George III, under pressure from Queen Charlotte, refused to consent the marriage. In 1798, Frederica became pregnant by Prince Friedrich Wilhelm of Solms-Braunfels. They were forced to marry and she gave birth to a baby girl only 2 months after the wedding. They had 5 more children together who survived adulthood. Friedrich Wilhelm was an alcoholic and quit his job in the military for health reasons. He lost his income and Frederica was advised to divorce him. She was against the idea, but after meeting Ernest, she too wanted the divorce. Before they could divorce, Friedrich Wilhelm died in 1814. Ernest's older brother George became the Prince Regent in 1811, due to their father's incapacitation, and he gave his consent for the marriage. They were married on the 29th of May 1815 at the Palace of Neustrelitz. They were advised by the British Privy Council to have a second marriage in England because any child born of the marriage could eventually be close to the succession. Ernest arrived back in England in June 1815 without Frederica to make plans for their second wedding. Shortly after he arrived, Queen Charlotte sent him a letter refusing to receive Frederica, because it was known in England that Frederica had broken off her engagement to Adolphus, and she warned the rest of the family that she would be greatly displeased if they received Frederica. Nevertheless, Ernest escorted Frederica to England, and they had a second wedding ceremony on the 29th of August 1815 in Carlton House. Ernest's sisters felt they could not defy their mother, but his brothers George, Frederick, William and Edward all attended the ceremony. The couple had one son and two stillborn daughters together, Frederica, an unnamed daughter, and a son named George. The succession crisis of 1817 caused Ernest's unmarried brothers to marry to try to produce an heir. Ernest's son, George, was born 3 days after the birth of the eventual heir to the British throne, Alexandrina Victoria, who was the daughter of Ernest's older brother Edward. On the 20th of June 1837, Ernest's eldest surviving brother, William IV, died. Alexandrina Victoria became queen as Queen Victoria. Upon her ascension to the throne, Ernest became King of Hanover, as Hanover followed Salic law, barring female succession. Ernest Augustus arrived in Hanover on the 28th of June 1837 to take up his duties as the new King of Hanover, and returned to England only once in 1843 for the wedding of his niece, Princess Augusta of Cambridge. Initially welcomed by cheering crowds, Ernest Augustus proved unpopular. He declared the 1833 Liberal Constitution void and restored the conservative 1819 Constitution. This change required all office holders, including professors of the University of Göttingen, to take an oath of allegiance to the king, which many refused to do. So the king expelled those most responsible from Hanover. Queen Frederica died on the 29th of June 1841 at the age of 63. Ernest had a mausoleum built for his wife and himself, which was completed in 1847. The revolutions of 1848 encouraged the citizens of German states to demand German national unity, freedom of the press, and freedom of assembly. Ernest was reluctant to agree, but to prevent revolution, Ernest agreed to the reforms. He appointed Johann Karl Bertram Stuve as the deputy of the National Assembly in Hanover, and a new constitution was created, which came into effect in 1848. Ernest's popularity increased with the new constitution. Eventually, Ernest passed away on the 18th of November 1851 after a short illness. He was buried beside his wife in the mausoleum he had built. Prince Augustus, Duke of Sussex, was born on the 27th of January 1773, the ninth of 15 children born to King George III and Queen Charlotte. Augustus was raised by the governess Lady Charlotte Finch, and lived in a household with his brothers Ernest and Adolphus once he left the nursery. The brothers went to the University of Göttingen in 1786. A career in the military was considered inappropriate for Augustus, as he suffered from asthma and had poor health. His doctors advised him to avoid the winter in England, so in December 1790, Augustus moved to France and then Italy, and he would remain there for a number of years. During his travels, he met Josiah Dornford, whose father was active in prison reform. Josiah's liberal views influenced Augustus. In 1791, Augustus considered becoming a member of the clergy, and he wrote to his father for advice. His letters went unanswered, which caused Augustus to become restless. In November 1792, Augustus went to Rome, where he met a group of English aristocrats. He met Lady Augusta Murray and fell madly in love with her. Feeling like his father was not listening to him, as he did not respond to any of his letters, and like his life had no direction and no purpose, Augustus proposed to Augusta without the knowledge of anyone in the royal family, which was in contravention of the Royal Marriages Act of 1772. He also did not have permission from the monarch. At first, Augusta refused because of the situation their marriage would place Augustus regarding the Marriage Act. However, this only fueled Augustus' passion, and on the 4th of April 1793, Augustus and Augusta got married in secret. In August 1793, Augustus was recalled to England because his governor, who had no idea he was married, had alerted Augustus' parents he had formed a dangerous relationship. Augusta and her mother followed him to England, and Augustus continued visiting them in their London home. By this time, Augusta was pregnant. During the summer of 1793, bonds of the marriage for the couple were read at St. George's, Hanover Square in London, under aliases. On the 5th of December 1793, Augustus and Augusta got married in England. On the 13th of January 1794, Augusta gave birth to a baby boy named after his father, Augustus Frederick. King George III was angered by this marriage and declared it null and void in August 1794. Despite this, Augustus and Augusta continued to live together, and another child, Augusta Emma, was born on the 11th of August 1801. The children were deemed illegitimate and took the surname d'Este, as both their parents were descendants of the House of Este. In 1801, the couple separated, and Augustus was created the Duke of Sussex, Earl of Inverness, Baron Arklow, and he received a grant of £12,000 a year. Augusta retained the custody of their children and received £4,000 a year. On the 5th of March 1830, Augusta died at the age of 62, which saddened Augustus. Their oldest son, Augustus, was the earliest recorded person for whom a definitive diagnosis of multiple sclerosis can be made, due to the many detailed diaries he kept for 22 years detailing all his symptoms. He died unmarried in 1848. Augusta Emma married Thomas Wilde, 1st Baron Truro. Their marriage was childless. Like her father, she suffered from asthma and spent time in the warmer climates of Europe to ease her symptoms. Augustus married again in contravention of the Royal Marriages Act. Lady Cecilia Buggin and Augustus married on the 2nd of May 1831. They lived together in Kensington Palace. After Augustus's niece Victoria ascended the throne, she bestowed the title of Duchess of Inverness on Cecilia. Victoria was fond of her uncle, and he was fond of her. Victoria asked him to give her away at her wedding to Prince Alfred of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, which he happily did. He sobbed emotionally throughout the entire wedding ceremony. On the 21st of April 1843, Augustus died. Because he feared his wife would not be allowed to be buried beside him in the royal vault at St. George's Chapel, Augustus left instructions that he be buried in Kensal Green Cemetery. Cecilia continued to live in Kensington Palace until she passed away on the 1st of August 1873. Prince Adolphus, Duke of Cambridge, was the youngest son of King George III and Queen Charlotte to live to adulthood. He was born on the 24th of February 1774. Like his brothers, he was educated by tutors until he was sent away to the University of Göttingen at the age of 12. He became a Knight of the Garter in 1786 and was created Duke of Cambridge, Earl of Tipperary and Baron Culloden in 1801. Adolphus started his military training in 1791 and studied under the Hanoverian commander Field Marshal von Freytag. He participated in the Flanders campaign, in which he was wounded and captured but eventually rescued. He was promoted to lieutenant general in the Hanoverian army and participated in the War of the Second Coalition against France. In 1803, he was appointed as commander-in-chief of the newly formed King's German Legion. In 1813, he was made a field marshal. In 1816, Adolphus was appointed Governor-General of the Kingdom of Hanover. In 1831, his title was changed to Viceroy. He was a capable and efficient ruler of Hanover and remained in the position until his brother Ernest became King of Hanover in 1837. In 1817, following the death of his niece, Princess Charlotte of Wales, Adolphus went in search of a wife to provide an heir. He fell in love with Princess Augusta of Hesse Castle, and they were wed on the 7th of May 1818 and again at the Queen's House or Buckingham Palace 1st of June 1818. She was only 20 while he was 44. Despite the age difference, they had a happy marriage. They lived in Hanover from 1818 until 1837, and upon their return to England, they lived at Cambridge House and later at St. James's Palace. They had 3 children together: George, born in 1819, Augusta, born in 1822, and Mary Adelaide, born in 1833. It is through their youngest child that they are ancestors of King Charles III. On the 8th of July 1850, Adolphus passed away. He was buried in the Cambridge Mausoleum. Augustus survived him by 39 years, passing away at the age of 91 in 1889. Their remains were removed from the mausoleum and interred in the royal vault in St. George's Chapel, at the request of their granddaughter, Queen Mary. Prince Octavius of Great Britain was born on the 23rd of February 1779 in Buckingham Palace. He was the 13th child of King George III and Queen Charlotte. He was his father's favourite child. His older siblings caused his father so much trouble that the king enjoyed spending time with his younger children. He often gave them presents, attended their birthday parties, and arranged special outings. Sophia, who was only 2 years older than him, was very close to Octavius and called him her son. Smallpox was a deadly disease that knew no class boundaries and killed many, leaving survivors scarred. Until the safer smallpox vaccine was developed in the 1790s, there was another way to prevent smallpox, called variolation. Live smallpox virus in the liquid taken from the smallpox blister in a mild case of the disease was put into a cut of a healthy person. About 3% of those inoculated developed a severe case of smallpox and died. But that was preferable to catching smallpox, with its mortality rate of 40%. In 1722, King George I had 2 of his grandchildren inoculated and they survived. The inoculation gained acceptance and was used until Edward Jenner developed a safer vaccination in the 1790s. Prince Octavius was one of those who did not survive the inoculation. Following the death of his brother Alfred from the inoculation in 1782, his parents waited a year before inoculating Prince Octavius and Princess Sophia. Princess Sophia recovered without incident, but Octavius became ill and died on the 3rd of May 1783. His parents were devastated. His remains were buried in Westminster Abbey. In 1820, his remains were transferred to the royal vault at St. George's Chapel so they could rest with his parents. The youngest son of King George III and Queen Charlotte was Prince Alfred of Great Britain. He was born on the 22nd of September 1780. He was called a blue baby, most likely due to a heart defect, and was always in delicate health. His parents thought the smallpox inoculation would help his health. In 1782, Alfred received the smallpox vaccination. He did not recover as he should have, so he was taken to Deal by the sea in the hopes that the sea air and salt water would help. However, it did not. He developed breathing difficulty and suffered from long bouts of fever. He passed away on the 20th of August 1782, shortly before his 2nd birthday. There was no formal mourning for Alfred, as it was not customary for the deaths of those under the age of 7. He was buried at Westminster Abbey. In 1820, his remains were transferred to the royal vault at St. George's Chapel.